live.
Well, hello and welcome to the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. This is Wendy Rose Williams, and Gregg, Kirk, and I are here twice a month on the second and the fourth Sunday at noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm a past life adventure guide, and what I do is help people release chronic pain, depression, and anxiety so that they can live a happy life, a healthy life that's filled with purpose. And my website is wendyrosewilliams.com. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, soul families, soul groups, soulmates. Perhaps we'll get into soul contracts too. But I would like to introduce Gregg Kirk and have him walk you through what he does. And you may see my cat Midnight popping in and off the screen here because he jumped up and said, hello. Reminder, animals can be part of our soul families too. They can be soulmates even. So yeah, the minute the Zoom came on today, he was like, Zoom, right to the screen.
Nice. Well, welcome Midnight if he decides to come in. I'm Gregg Kirk. I am a light worker, energy healer. Oh, there's Midnight. Welcome Midnight. I do a range of things considered energy healing. I do remote sessions. I do in-person sessions with tuning forks. And lately I've been doing an online healing circle that we just did earlier today. And we had a very profound interaction with higher level beings. We all got individual and personal healings. It was a really enjoyable, fantastic, and moving experience. So if you're interested in participating in something like that, it's only $20. We're doing it every Sunday. I highly recommend it. I welcome you, and it's for believers. So some wild things happen every now and then, but it's also for people who might be experiencing physical infirmities and emotional things. That kind of, anything where you feel like general medicine isn't helping you, or your therapist isn't helping you, or your friends aren't helping you make sense of things. It's a good place to come. So. And you can check me out at greggkirk.com. So that's spelled Gregg. Nope, sorry, that's my email address. Greggkirk.com. And look in the events section, and that's where you can see all that stuff, or you can reach out to me and sign up for an individual session. So with all that said, I'm going to hand it over to Wendy. She's got a deck prepared and a great discussion on this idea of soul groups, soulmates, and all that.
Fantastic. So let me share my screen here and take us into a PowerPoint. And here we go. So I love the serendipity of the timing that just comes up. So just late last night, I saw this neat definition of a soul group come up, because I think that's a great place to start. And my belief and experience and what I've seen in just so many client sessions is that we do choose to have soul groups. And these are just simply people that we reincarnate with many times. And there's a lot of reasons. It's for support. It's to feel love when you're here on the planet or wherever you choose to be. It's to help you with specific lessons. So there's just a lot that comes up through that. And I first read about soul groups in Michael Newton's Journey of Souls. And I just really liked all the work that he did and all the detailing. So let me read you this definition from Molly McCord in her book, From the Modern Heroine's Journey of Consciousness. And what she says about soul groups is soul groups are clusters of people that you have had many lifetimes with for the purpose of mutual growth and support. Soul groups incarnate together to learn, to grow, to heal, and maybe working something out together. And I think that's a really important point, because soul mates, when we start to get into those are not always the easiest relationships. So we'll get into that. You may meet multiple soul groups from various past life scenarios throughout your life, or may have one significant soul group that you stay connected with from birth to death. The combination for connections are unlimited. And I think that just puts it really, really well, because there's no there's no black and white about this. There's like no set rule of you must have a soul group and it must be so many people and you never get to change. So just I've seen a lot more variety than that. People sometimes move on up from their soul group and join another soul group, or a certain person or two people will, whatever number will drop out of it and, move into another one. Or you may be with your primary soul group, but you may also work with a specific other people from other groups and form a new group for a specific project. I mean, just picture being like in college or in the workplace where you get like a task soul group together. So I've personally been involved in some of those. So what are your thoughts on that, Gregg, and on soul groups in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So, very familiar with this term, and it seems to come through, and with my experiences and information as well. And a soul group or a soul cluster is another term for it, is a group of, what I used to call in the past soulmate. And what I meant, my understanding of what a soulmate wasn't that one person who was, your lover for life. It was somebody you've definitely had a past life experience with. So how do you know it? And it's just kind of ineffable or indescribable. When you meet one of these people, the hallmark of it is, have I met you before? Or you just like pick up from 0 to 60 of just fantastic interaction. That's the positive experience. It could be the opposite. It could be you hate this guy or woman from the moment you laid eyes on them, because you've got something to work out on the opposite end of the spectrum. So it's somebody that you have a deep, passionate, and intimate interaction with from the start.
That's a great hallmark. Yes, I agree with that. All right, well, wonderful. And you are welcome to share comments if you've joined us via Zoom. You're welcome to share comments or questions in the chat. And if you were on Facebook with us in the Waking Up Spiritually group, you're welcome to put comments and questions and share your experiences in there too, so that this is a group discussion. All right, well, let's move on to the next slide here. And here we go. So here's soulmate expectations versus reality, because yes, don't we want to be just, walking down the beach and having this fantastic lifetime romance? I mean, that's very appealing to many of us, and that can be a real focus. And then the reality can be more like this photo in the middle. And let me just move, because I think you're seeing my exact screen. So let me just move us down here a little bit. So it can just be those, just feeling like you want to punch the person. My goodness, they can just be, that soulmate can be that trigger and just push our buttons more than anyone else ever has. And it can make you just feel crazy. It can make you feel irrational. So it's those just strong emotions and just trying to understand them. Or it can be this couple on the park bench where you just can't seem to get the communication right, or just can't seem to get the energy flowing together, even though there's a lot of draw to one another. And so Hollywood and pop culture just aren't doing us any favors, because they only show us that one model on the left of, well, of course you're supposed to be walking down the beach having just this perfect relationship romance going on. All right, let's move to the next slide here. So what are some of the characteristics and the purpose of soulmates? And as Gregg said, a soulmate is someone we've incarnated with many times. They can play numerous roles for us. They might be a parent, a child, a sibling, some other relative, so they can be part of our biological family. They might be a best friend, and it can be someone that you met very young and just literally stayed in touch with your entire life. They might be a teacher, a coach, a neighbor, a boss, or a coworker, or a romantic partner. So I just wanted to really, make that point that the romantic partner is just that very small subset of a type of soulmate. But Hollywood have us think, well, that's the only soulmate. And
Right.
gee, don't you want to be with your soulmate? So the primary purpose is often to teach us lessons. And some of those lessons are marvelous, just easy and fun and delightful. And others are the other end of the spectrum. And it's a real opportunity for our soul to advance and to grow. There can be karma. And karma, it's not punishment. I see it as a teaching tool. I see it as unbalanced energy that draws us back. It may be to that same exact person because there's mastery of a lesson is required and we didn't get it yet. Maybe we didn't forgive them. Maybe we weren't in gratitude. Whatever it might be. And you don't have to meet the same exact person that you may have karma with. For instance, if you have been a heartbreaker, you are very likely going to need to experience having your heart broken as an example, but it doesn't have to be with the same exact person. Again, it's not that black and white. So my best advice when you're meeting that soulmate and just got all that swirling energy, because oh my goodness, it can just really, really catch your attention and be so special and different, as Gregg well expressed, is just work to keep your focus in the present and work to ground and clear your energy. And if you don't know how to ground and clear your energy, Gregg and I have done several podcasts on that. So would invite you to look on our wakingupspiritually.com website and look for some of the past programs on that, because that is really, really going to help. And if it does feel like this is meant to be a romance, or you're already in that and now like really starting to think, oh my goodness, can I have known this person before? Try and determine with the clearest head you can. And boy, does that get hard. If you've got all these emotions swirling around and the intensity of a potential soulmate relationship, and all those endorphins and just all those hormones going on, just try and determine as clearly as you can. Does this feel like it's for a reason? Is there a specific thing you feel like, oh gosh, I really think I'm meant to learn XYZ with this person? Or can you tell it's meant to be a beautiful season type of relationship where it's going to be one of those, um, perhaps short-lived, but still very, very meaningful types of relationships? Or is it potentially for a lifetime? Granted, often we have to have the gift of being the Monday morning quarterback, and we have to be way beyond the relationship and have had some time to really mold that over before we can tell. But
Right.
let's move on to any comments on that, Gregg.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. A story that encompasses almost every box here. I had an
Oh,
experience.
please.
Yeah. So I was doing a personal meditation several years ago, and in the middle of the meditation, I saw this young girl come into the foreground of my, mind's eye, and she started beckoning me, like, "Come with me." And I saw this. I thought, I'm imagining this. This isn't real. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose? Let me follow her and see where she takes me. She took me to a place I've been to many times, or not many, but enough that I recognize it very clearly. It's in the middle of Paris. It's at the banks of the Notre Dame Cathedral, the banks of the Seine River, and it's one of the ponts, the bridges there. The thing that was unusual that I noticed was the height of the river was all the way to the top of the arch. It was almost at the level of the bridge, which didn't seem right. And then there was all these gendarmes around, and they pulled a body out of the river. So I thought, is this me? Am I watching my death? Do I have something to heal from this? And my consciousness kind of floated up And I didn't get an answer. And then all of a sudden I started seeing this woman that I've never seen before. She had braids very tightly wound on the sides of her head. She was kind of a plump woman, and she was like going like this, hugging herself, singing a lullaby in a turn of the century house, with an area rug and very old looking doilies on the table, all that kind of stuff. And just watching this and watching her sing, I burst into tears. And I realized it was my mother from that time. Well, the strange thing was, like, I had to go to work, like I was late. I was like, oh, I got to go to work. Well, for the next 2 days, I went back and I picked up where I had left off in meditation. And I found out that she was my mother. She used to beat me. She didn't know any better at the time. She just thought, this is what you do to a kid. You beat the crap out of him.
She thought that was discipline. She thought that was child correction.
Yes. I found other members of the family. Who was to become my wife in my later years is my mother now. So this woman was my mother. She didn't come back in a soul cluster now because of this reason. On the third, so the other thing was, I'm like, why are the banks of the River Seine flooded? There's no floods in Paris. And I looked it up online, and there had been a flood in Paris in like 1910, I think it was. So this is
goodness. So
2010, literally 100-year anniversary of this happening, like within a month. So, and when I saw the pictures of the river, I burst into tears from seeing that. Like, that's not a normal reaction. So each, 3 days in a row, I'm crying from this weird stuff that I didn't make sense to me mentally. On the third day, I realized that, she had beaten me, and I was like, okay, well, I don't feel anything. I don't feel bad from it now. I don't even really remember it. So I forgive her. I know that that's something that you need to do, in a situation like this. And it's the moment, like literally the split second I said, I forgive you, I saw her body stretch down into the earth and take a new life. So she was waiting 100 years for me.
Oh my goodness.
To forgive her. So look at all the things that you just talked about in this slide.
Right.
Many of them happened. She was waiting for the karmic release of me to forgive her, to take a new life. I saw the role switch. My mother in this life was my wife in that life. And anyway, there was this, it was very emotional, but from that point on, I did, I can look at pictures of flooded Paris and I don't, burst into tears. And it was a release for me as well, an emotional release. So it was really, really amazing that this all just happened spontaneously.
Yes, I was going to say, what a fantastic example of spontaneous past life recall. And you can just feel, doesn't that make so much sense and it's so incredible that bubbled up again on that 100-year anniversary. So
Seriously.
People absolutely can feel energy and have special meditations and just special recall around anniversary dates, around birth dates, death dates, and it may not have been who you were in that lifetime, but it may have been, your spouse, your parent. But just being able to connect with your guides and your higher self and say, gosh, what is going on? And so often the lesson is forgiveness and being in gratitude. That's amazing. What a great story, Gregg. I'm so glad you shared that. All right. Well, let's move on here to the next slide. So here's some of the signs that you may have met a past life romantic partner. There can be a precognitive announcement dream, and you can just hear ahead of time, get ready, something special going on, something's going to happen. And once you meet that person, you can even find out that, guess what? They were having the same experience. To make it even more wild, that we can have these dreams ahead of time, because dreams are a great place where our guides can connect with us and just give us information and give us help, because we're just obviously in that, relaxed state, and they can access us through our subconscious and our unconscious. And, we're not there in our left brain, just pushing it away, going, oh, that's not real, or no, that doesn't happen for me. So that's just one of the things that can happen. And then when you do meet face to face in the physical, it can be a very memorable and unusual meeting. And as Gregg said at the very beginning, there can be that feeling of there you are. And it's kind of feeling like a puzzle piece is clicking in, like it's something you were waiting for and knew was going to happen. So there can also be those feelings of deja vu, of just, I know this person. And there can be an instant, strong like or dislike. And I've certainly experienced both, and I'm sure most people have experienced both, but may not have realized, what that was. With soulmates, you may be able to just finish one another's sentences. It just flows so easily. And you might feel like you're picking right up on an ongoing conversation. So that's another kind of hallmark. You may discover you've got telepathy with one another, even though you don't normally feel like you're especially psychic or telepathic. It can be the little things like you go to reach for the phone to call the person or text the person, and they call or text you right at that same exact moment. So those sorts of things, or you can just have the feeling when something great is going on for them, or something really challenging, and you just feel the need to reach out because you're just really tuned into each other on that special wavelength. There can be an unusual excitement or intensity to the relationship if it's a past life romantic partner, because you may not only be living the energy now, you may be pulling in a lot of that past life energy too. There can be a high degree of clarity about the relationship, and you just are clear as day. I'll use my oldest daughter and her husband. They just married in July, and just this magical couple. They met in high school when Tara was in 10th grade and Nathan was in 12th grade. And they were the first person that they ever dated. So it was just really special right from the beginning. And they've just had this amazing, just charmed relationship in so many ways. Yes, it's a relationship that's got to put in the work too. Sure, there can be disagreements at times, but it's just fantastic that they just seem to know from the beginning what path they were on, and now here are happily married at 24 and 26. So they've already known each other 8 years. I mean, it's been a third of Tara's life. So there can also be confusion about this relationship because it can be so clouded with all that past life energy just kind of rolling in, and you don't know what's going on. And there can be a lot of variety to the past lives that you've had together. So you can feel really drawn to this person, but then be like, oh, I just can't stand you. I can't stand this type of thing. So there can be what I call kind of like a push-pull relationship because of the energy not being clear. The people one or both may recall past lives together or feel the previous life energy. There can be a past life bleed through or past life spontaneous recall that comes up when you're wide awake or when you're meditating or when you're sleeping. So it can just come in different ways. It can be really, so I should stop at that point. Any comments, any questions from people, anything from you, Gregg?
Yeah, I just want to distinguish between, there's a lot of talk about this idea of a twin flame as well. And, so what's the difference between a soulmate and a twin flame? And I would just say, a soulmate can be a person who's kind of one of the players in your soul group. The twin flame is more or less what Wendy was talking about here. It's the person you are like assigned to each other. You know what I mean? Like you got something positive or negative or a combination of both. Like the intensity of the relationship. So, listen to that word. The words can be taken literally. You're a twin flame. You're two flames together and you burn brightly, emotionally, passionately together, and because you got to burn up things and work things out, more or less. Do you see it in any other way, or are you familiar? And you've probably heard the term twin flame, Wendy.
Yeah, I'm familiar with twin flames. I see a twin flame as a unique type of soulmate. I see them as the other half of your soul, and you've chosen to separate so that you can progress more and to go off and have some different experiences and then come back together. I see the twin flame as especially intense because it's like the mirror being held up to you of everything you don't like about yourself and the work that you still have left to do to get complete in yourself. But there can be plenty of other soulmate relationships that are intense without being a twin flame in my experience. So one of the tools that I found is it can be really helpful if you can just intuit, if you can just sit down and feel into, put your hand on your heart, get some quiet time with yourself and see if you can intuit your soul contract with that other person, with this other soulmate, whether it's a romantic relationship or not. Because you can have soul contracts, of course, with many types of people. I see soul contracts as being agreements that we made before we both incarnated. And just looking at it as, okay, what are we meant to learn together can be super helpful. Looking at, is there something you're meant to let go of during the relationship? And if you can start to figure out what past life energy you're meant to release. Are there particular things that just push your button and make you angry with this person, even though you care about them, you love them, whatever? Do they push your buttons in the area of jealousy or powerlessness, or are they bringing up some self-worth issues? Because sometimes, you've got someone you're in a relationship with, and they're just a very outgoing, extroverted, flirty kind of person. So does that work for you? Does that not work for you? Because that can bring up jealousy and self-worth for a lot of people, as one example. There can also be past life energy to just celebrate. It's not the doom and gloom report. So there can just definitely be some things, and you can find some amazing, wonderful past life experiences that you've shared together. And another way that you can work to figure out what the soul contract might be with this important person in your life is just think about, how would your life be different if you'd never met? And that can help give you the answer to, okay, here's what I'm to learn. Here's what I'm to be working on, that sort of thing. So those are just some thoughts on soul contracts. And now we'll get into a couple examples. My friend, Karen Downing, who's a spiritual teacher, her website is yoursoulmission.com. And she's got a wonderful free past life patterns quiz on her website. And it helps you look at past lives as archetypes. And that can be so helpful too, because you can look at, do I have a lot of ruler energy or warrior energy or servant or agent or whatever types of archetypes, because those can really come through strongly in your relationship with that soulmate. And you might be playing that old part a little bit too much. So it's a really neat, like a 10-minute quiz. And then just as you work through that, then it just automatically emails you the results of it. So that's just a neat thing to take a look at. It's a great tool. And I've repeated it a couple times, maybe like a year apart. And I was happy how much I've been able to let go of some of the energy that I was stuck in. When I first took it the very first time, I had a ton of warrior energy as well as ruler energy. And gosh, it was wonderful to be able to work through some of that and work on some new things, because those were not serving me especially well. But you just have to be upfront. You just got to be honest with yourself and say, yeah, that does really fit. And then be able to move on from there. So here's a wonderful quote from Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love as her memoir and had that made into a film. And she says, people think a soulmate is your perfect fit, and that's what everyone wants. But a true soulmate is a mirror, kind of tying in with our discussion about twin flame. The person who shows you everything that's holding you back, the person who brings you to your own attention so you can change your life. A true soulmate is probably the most important person you'll ever meet because they tear down your walls and smack you awake. And that was absolutely my experience. But to live with a soulmate forever, nah, too painful. Soulmates, they come into your life to reveal another layer of yourself to you and then leave. A soulmate's purpose is to shake you up, tear apart your ego a little bit, show you your obstacles and addictions, break your heart open so new light can get in, make you feel so desperate and out of control that you have to transform your life, and then introduce you to your spiritual master. So that's really a powerful quote. Any comments from the audience so far, Gregg? I can't change my screen to look at either the chat or the Facebook.
No. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So any comments from you on that? Does that one resonate for you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's nothing to add. That
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
pretty well.
And it's super ironic. The soulmate, this just makes me laugh so hard. The soulmate that woke me up spiritually, which did take smacking me awake. The first movie we ever went to was Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay.
So just really funny. So let me get into an example of one of my most important soulmates this lifetime. And I've found 4 shared lives with my former husband. And the first life that I am aware with him was he was my son 2,000 years ago, who sadly became estranged by his choice. And I was never able to find him and to reconcile that relationship. So that was just really sad. And then he was a suitor that I turned away back in the 1600s. That was called a spurned suitor. And from that, that was what led to us getting together in this lifetime, because we made a contract after that we would then explore the relationship and would get married. He was an abusive priest to me in one of my past lives, and then became my husband in this lifetime. So we met in 1987, we married in 89, and then we divorced in 2005. And I wish I had been spiritually awake at that time. It would have given me a lot more tools. I wish I had found Gary Chapman's love languages, 5 love languages, because I think that book would have helped us a lot, because we spoke the absolute opposite love languages, which certainly did not help us. Communication was always really hard. And it's just tough. It's just tough to have a good marriage or any type of long-term relationship when you just don't communicate well. I did find our soul contract well after our divorce, and that gave me a lot of peace, just to know what that soul contract was. And it was to experience a long-term marriage, to grow from significantly, and to have beautiful children together. And we fulfilled that contract. So it may sound sad or harsh, but it's not meant to be. But I think that's how I knew that we just were done. So that is why we divorced, as peacefully and kindly as we could, and then became better communicators, and also became better people. Because we needed to raise 2 little girls together. They were only 6 and 8 when we divorced. So we just set some ground rules that we never broke, which was that we were going to be kind and respectful to one another, and that the kids were not going to take it on the chops. That anything that was hard or difficult, that was our job as adults, and it was not going to get them caught in the middle. So. We purchased our first home together a few months after we were married in Boxford, Massachusetts, which is just north of Boston. And what was very unique and interesting and really made me question my sanity was a ghost immediately began presenting. And she was a heartbroken young woman from colonial America. And again, I just didn't have that belief system. That just was not making sense to me. I just didn't know what to do with it. It helped a lot that 3 separate guests who stayed with us in the 4 years we lived in that house, without me mentioning a word to them of the experiences I'd had night after night, many, many, many times with this ghost, was they all immediately in the morning when I said, how'd you sleep? You need any more pillows? Got enough towels? Just totally generic question like that. And they all said to me, oh my gosh, I've got to tell you about this wild dream I had last night. It was so intense. There was this ghost, there was this young woman, she's so heartbroken, etc. And they described my dream. And I'm like, how can that be? 3 different people, 3 different times, again, with no question, no prompting, no sharing from me. That really helped me know something really was going on, and that I was not a crazy person and that I should start to try and understand it. One of the amazing things that helped me identify, my husband had been my suitor that I turned down at Plymouth Plantation in the 1600s. I was able to find his name on one of the ship's rolls. Someone had transcribed and did this great job of putting together the passengers on the different ships. And I found his name there, and his first name and his last name from then in the 1600s at Plymouth to now, 1 letter different. I mean, it's almost exactly the same name. So I was like, oh my gosh. So it was just such a confirmation. And as I mentioned, was also my son 2,000 years ago, and was an abusive priest in a lifetime when I died in my 30s, caretaking my current mother. So you can just see a lot of challenging energy for us to work to overcome. And he had the same first name now as when he was my son 2,000 years ago and when he was my suitor at Plymouth. So 3 of the 4 lives, the same first name. So that again was big validation for me to put these pieces of the puzzle together. So I wrote the story about Plymouth because there was so much energy from it I had not released. It was like this weight just crushing me. So it became my second book, The Flow One Plymouth Plantation. I wrote it as historic metaphysical fiction, but it's my past life at Plymouth, because what I described, or what I discovered to my great surprise, was that ghost that I kept seeing when we lived in Boxford was actually me. And it was my past life at Plymouth Plantation. So that was what I needed to clean up, because that was just a big deal to, still be just not having resolved that energy. So that was kind of the background to that. So having been a ghost for 300 plus years, that really was such a bad pun. That was really haunting me. And just needed to clean up that energy. A big part of how I was able to do so was I met a woman named Lori Regan, who's become a wonderful friend. She's my writing partner now. And Lori has the amazing gift of, she downloads sketches from spirit, and she doesn't know who they are or who they're going to be for, but she's a past life sketch artist, so an intuitive artist. So the very first time I met her, she did this sketch. I met her in person. She did this sketch in the upper left-hand corner. And it's not about how good is this art. She's never taken an art class purposefully because she wants to draw from spirit, and she just doesn't want to have like technique get in the way of it. But you'll see as the years go on how her art has just progressed and progressed. And she did that sketch in less than 10 minutes. So again, it's not about how fantastic is this sketch. It's because she had a long line. There were maybe 15 people at this party, and she was just trying to power through and just tune into what did we most need to release. So when I met her, I was just floundering in the energy from that past life at Plymouth. I didn't tell her a thing. She didn't want to know a thing. She just asked my permission to draw me, to help me. And sometimes it's you in that past life that comes through. Sometimes it's a guide. Sometimes it's someone you knew. But in this case, it was me as Anne Warren Little. And she also did a mini psychic reading, and just told me some things. And the minute she turned the paper around and showed it to me, and she said, "Do you know who this is?" I just burst into tears. I said, "Yeah, absolutely. It's me. And I'm so stuck in that life." So she helped me release it. So that was amazing enough to have that experience. But then about 3 or 4 days later, she posts a sketch in the lower right-hand corner. And I mean, it's such a generic sketch of a man in some ways, because there's no clothing, there's nothing you can say, the time period. And she posted it on her Facebook page because she didn't know who it was for or who it was. And the message that she was given was that many people would potentially recognize this man because he was quite well known in his time period. And she was given a clue by Spirit that only the person who could say who Wayne was to this man could have the sketch. So I think multiple people did ask her for the sketch, but I was the only one. I just went straight into meditation and said, "I know this man. I know this man with every fiber of my being. Who is this and who was Wayne to him?" And my guides just told me, "Well, Wayne was his brother. This is Captain William Pierce, who became known as the Ferryman of the North, because he successfully moved the most people from England over to colonial America and transported them up to Plymouth and down to Virginia." So I was the only person who knew that. So she gave me the sketch. To make it more interesting, that sketch is of my former boyfriend who woke me up spiritually. And I had it on my phone. And he and I had been dating for a while, and I showed that sketch just on my phone without saying what it was or who it was, and just showed it to various friends who knew him and said, "Do you know who this sketch is?" And they all said, "Oh my gosh, that's an amazing sketch of," and they named him in his current day, and they all knew who it was. So it was quite interesting, how the energy can just come through. He'd never met Lori. I mean, it just was amazing that how she could do that. So it continued. And what happened next was, again, a few days later, she posted again this unknown sketch in the upper left-hand corner. And I knew immediately who it was. I knew it was my best friend from Plymouth, who's one of my best friends in my life now. And again, I showed the sketch to that friend, just sent it to her on my phone and said, "Do you know who this is?" And she said, "That's me in a past life. How did you get that? How did this happen? What's going on?" So it just was incredible. And that friend and I had operated the colonies at Trading Post together, and she was my next door neighbor and best friend for a lifetime. And she's the one who recognized that my ghost from Plymouth was me and was still here, and helped me start to clean that up in 2013. And then the final sketch that came through that Lori drew, again, having no idea who any of these players are, she posted the sketch in the bottom right on Facebook. And the only clue that she said was she heard the word father when she was drawing it. That one took me a week of daily I knew the man, and my friend Abby and my friend who'd been Captain William Pierce, neither of them recognized him. They were like, he looks like a pilgrim, feels like Plymouth, but don't know who he is. So I had to really meditate to get that one figured out. And then it was so obvious. It was like, forehead slap. The word father meant, hello, father of my children in this lifetime. And it was my spurned suitor from that lifetime. And the reason that my next door neighbor and best friend didn't know him, and the reason Captain William Pierce didn't know him, they never met him. So it just was that simple. And I had just had him in my life very, very, very briefly. So that was just such an amazing experience to have these sketches come through and help me release the energy. So I'm just forever grateful to Lori. I would just go back for 1 second. So it can be just fun to go to her Facebook page. So I included it here. It's Lori.Bell, BELLE.5. Just go to her Facebook page because she has all kinds of past life sketches there. And who knows, maybe you'll find one that you know and that you relate to. And it can just really be a kick to say, how can this happen? And, how can our guides do this for us? So it's just a very special gift that she has. I appreciate it very much. So any comments on that, Gregg? I know that was a pretty deep dive.
No, that was great. It's very fascinating.
All right. So a couple of just good quotes here that spoke to me. A soulmate is the one person whose love is powerful enough to motivate you to meet your soul, to do the emotional work of self-discovery and of awakening. So that's something Kenny Loggins said. And also soulmates are muses, the people in your life you despise, disrespect, and desire the most. So that gets back to that intensity again. So quote from Coco Ginger on that. And that just really spoke to me. So let's move into, the second soulmate in my current life that's been so important is the boyfriend who woke me up spiritually that I called Simon in my first book. And we found a stunning 19 lives together. It's like, oh my goodness, how many times do you need to meet? And I really kid him because he's incarnated on Earth around 63 times. And I said, oh my goodness, you've known me in like a third of your lives. You really need to meet some more people. So I met him in 2010 in the most ridiculous way possible. We knew each other immediately. And we met via Match.com, which I think is hysterical to get your spiritual awakening via Match. Via a dating website. But our guides, they just so care for us and they just so want to help us. I think that they're going to go wherever we're going, whatever we're doing, whatever we're working on, when it's time for something to happen. And it was time for me to wake up. They're going to go wherever we are. So they're just going to help and meet us where we're at. So I think that's why that happened. I discovered pretty quickly that we did have a soul contract for him to wake me up spiritually. And I also started to meditate because I met him and because I needed to get out of that monkey mind and to start to get some clarity. And it didn't take long to find we had a contract for a happy marriage later in life. And also to write and publish together and to speak publicly to help others wake up spiritually. So I was incredibly jazzed about these soul contracts and just, could kind of see the progression of them. What happened instead was we broke up. And in 2011, he ended the relationship. We reconciled, which I'll be frank, I have never done in my life. I've always, okay, this needs to end. Just be as gracious as you can about it, be as kind as you can about it, and move on. Had always been my previous history. But because there was so much energy, we didn't know from the get-go that we had all these lives together. We knew each other at a very deep level. We kept trying to figure it out and it didn't take us too long to figure out it was past lives. So we broke up again, And then we really started to make progress once we said romance is off the table because we just become toxic together. So once we agreed to that, we started to really be able to move into the shared past lives. And I wrote a list of them. I mean, I can literally tell you the 19 shared past lives. So it's kind of in groups. There were the first 3 lives were scribes in silent monasteries. And we both looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, we're 2 of the most expressive people in the world. We must have really done our time being in the silent monasteries. But you grow a lot through it, and it did explain. We were both shown that's why he and I had such strong telepathy together while in a body, while on Earth, including in this lifetime, because we learned it in the silent monasteries. Because we saw each other, we recognized each other, we wanted nothing more than to talk, and we couldn't talk. So we would wait for lights out at night, because it was just, very early to bed, early to rise. And the minute lights were out, we'd just start talking to each other via telepathy. So, and then a lifetime as ship's master, William Pierce and Anne Warren Little. Found one lifetime as siblings where he was my older brother that was very overbearing. And just too domineering. And it explained why when he would say something jokingly to me, anything that was a little bit in that area, I would go crazy. I would get really, really angry. So it was that old energy. We did have one life as mother and son. And this is common, that you try on all these different roles. You really got to clear that energy to have a great romance because, Gregg, we've all had them, but you've just got to be able to, change that up to have the relationship now be a romantic one. We found past lifetime out on the Pacific Northwest, out on the Olympic coast in Quileute, which is the actual beaches that they used in Twilight for those beautiful beach scenes, where I was the medicine woman and he was an impetuous brave. And I got to see him drown right in front of my eyes and couldn't stop the action that he took. He went out to try and save other people, but he took this tremendously large multi-person canoe, or one and only canoe that's meant to be manned by many people. And he ran down to the beach trying to save people that were going down in a ship. It was a European ship going down. And he didn't wait for the other men to catch up to him. And you can't man one of those canoes alone. So it tipped over, he went down, everyone drowned, and we're all standing on the beach going, what the heck, dude? You needed to wait 60 more seconds. There is such a thing as teamwork. So that was a rough one. So we went back there in person. We made a past life pilgrimage and went back there in person, which was really, really helpful to release that energy. We had 6 lives as best friends or lovers, and 6 marriages, including as 1800s, very recent past life as writers, which was even in Washington State, where I live now. So it took a lot of teamwork in 2013 to get my ghost home. So picture going and asking your former lover, hey, I know we're not together anymore. I know we're not really speaking, but I think we have this tremendous past life together, and I need you to help me to get my ghost home. It really took me a lot to go say that to someone. And I give him a lot of credit because he looked at me for about 15 seconds, really blankly, going through are you crazy? And then he just looked at me and he said, tell me more. Tell me what's going on. And I just so appreciated that. And then we were able to work it together. He made a public apology and recognized me in a way only I would understand. At a birthday party, at a large birthday party that I attended, and I read aloud a letter that Anne wrote to William, and I I presented it as a guest who couldn't attend, and no one else knew it was a guest from the 1600s. And he publicly apologized for what he had done with abandoning her and not being truthful with her. And that was a big part of allowing me to do that soul retrieval of that ghost, because that's kind of the hallmark of a ghost, is sticking around because they want an apology or they don't feel recognized. We then moved into the soul contract, where he was to break my heart repeatedly until I stood in my power fully without abusing it. That is a brilliant contract. It is not an easy contract. No one wants their heart broken repeatedly, but it was the only way to resolve my karma as a heartbreaker, as well as to resolve my karma to inspire me, to push me to stand in my power fully, because I certainly was not abusing it. I was shirking it. I was shrinking from it. And we then were able to master our final lesson of parting peacefully, mastering just pristine boundaries with one another. And I had the good fortune to be Wendy Garrett. How confusing is this? Wendy Williams was on Wendy Garrett's Coffee House radio program, and she did just a fantastic interview with me. So I shared that link here about everything that just had happened in that relationship and what led to the book. And that relationship and Simon's past life regression with me in 2015 became my first book. So he did help me step to the plate and become an author, because I was so stuck. I just was not getting it done. I had written literally 1,200 pages of fiction. I'd written this big trilogy, but I just didn't have the skill set to know how to I didn't have an editor. I just didn't know how to organize it well enough. So I switched, to my great surprise, and wrote, with his permission, wrote his past life regression session as my first book, because he really needed some help resolving significant daily pain. And he also needed help connecting with his higher self and his spirit guides, because they were all around him, but he couldn't see them or hear them. And they were tapping me on the shoulder, and they kept asking me, give him this message, tell him this. It's like, no, I am not going to be the middleman. That's not appropriate. He needs to be able to, filter his own information from his own guides. So it was just a fantastic session. I was honored to get to do it. He was able to reduce his pain from an 8 to a 3. And to maintain that. So that was a really big deal, by going back to the 2 lifetimes of origin causing the pain. And we mastered our lesson with each other of forgiveness, because that was what needed to happen. Like Gregg's wonderful, that 100-year anniversary of that drowning of your mother in that lifetime. So I had no intent of writing a book. I was still stuck, but my MP3 recorder that I was recording a session with failed. And I had double recorded, because my guides told me to do that, which I've never done before. And his 4.5-hour session was on my phone, but I couldn't get the file to him. It wouldn't download, because an iPhone is not meant to record a 4.5-hour session. The phone company, they're all looking at me like, how did you get something that long on here? So it really was spirit at work. And when I started transcribing it and just typing it out for him, so that he could know what had happened, because he thought the session was 2 hours, which meant there was 2.5 hours of his subconscious coming through to help him, and those guides and higher self coming through. So that became the first book. So that led back to the contract, and we were going to help one another publish and speak about spirituality. So that was just an amazing soulmate journey with both of those men, and I just want to honor them and thank them for what we've done together through the centuries and through those many lives. I love The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. It's a fantastic book written by Annie Keegan, and she says we signed up to do this dance together before we were born, and that's the best way I can summarize what is a soulmate. It's someone you have agreed to dance with before you were born. So anything else, Gregg?
No, and we Just as you spoke, we're right at the top of the hour. I think we're in a good place to kind of wrap things up. We don't have any questions from anybody.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Well, fantastic.
This was great. I loved hearing about all the details of, of your relationships with these two people. And, so if anybody does have any questions, this broadcast is right now it's streaming live on the Facebook, in our Facebook group, Waking Up Spiritually. And we will answer questions there later on.
Absolutely.
If you have any. So feel free to do that. And of course, this the actual video of this is going to appear in the broadcasts area. Actually, what you're showing right now, wakingupspiritually.com/broadcast.
So it'll have this exact PowerPoint this way. Well,
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here either live or for catching us as the recording. And I'm Wendy Rose Williams. Please check out my Regression Healing and Mary Magdalene Channeling services on my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com. And you are so welcome to request a complimentary 15-minute phone appointment there and see if I can just help you with these types of resolution to these types of energy, because it's there for all of us. And boy, can we get a lot healthier and a lot happier in life, and we're able to release and move into the celebration type place of past life energy, rather than being just beat up by it and weighed down by it. So over to you, Gregg.
Yes, come check me out at greggkirk.com, GREGGKIRK.com. And love to have you. We can do a one-on-one session, or come join us in our online group healings circles that happen every Sunday. All right. So
Perfect.
On behalf of Wendy and me, we're signing off. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Bye-bye.